Welcome back to the Earthy Goodness Kitchen. Today I'm excited to share with you this Moroccan style pasta soup. It's one of my favourites this time of year as it starts to get a bit colder and it's packed with nutrients, bold flavours. You're going to love it, so let's get cooking. Before I start chopping, I always like to have some wet kitchen roll or a wet tea towel underneath the chopping board to keep it nice and secure. I also like to have a bowl or container ready for any vegetable peelings or offcuts to keep the chopping board clear. As always, the full recipe for this Moroccan pasta soup will be in the description box of the video, so you don't have to go to any external websites and it's nice and easy. We'll start this recipe with a sofrito, which is 1 part celery, onion and carrot, although in this case I'm going to be using fennel instead of celery, and we're just going to finely dice them. Sofrito is a flavour base used to start soups, stews and sauces, and it's cooked in olive oil until it goes beautifully sweet and caramelised. It's typically used in Italian cooking, but it's also used in other cuisines. We get a seasonal veg box which came with these beautiful purple carrots which are going to go amazingly in this soup, although they did make my hand look like I'm the purple Teletubby. A quick cooking tip I want to give you is to not always follow the recipe, and when I say that I mean if there's like a vegetable missing that you don't have, just replace it with one that you do have. So for example, in this recipe I'd usually use celery, but instead I've got a bit of fennel here that's starting to go a bit old, so I'm going to make sure I make use of this, and it's going to perfectly replace that celery. So it's always good to switch things up, use the vegetables that you do have, and you might end up creating a dish that's even better. So I've had this fennel in the fridge for a little bit too long, so I'm just going to trim off the darker bits, trying to not take off too much of the fennel, and then I'm just going to chop it up in the same sort of way that I'll do the onion. It's a good idea to cut your vegetables roughly to the same size so they cook nice and evenly. I did cut this fennel slightly too big, but it was fine in the end, so don't worry too much. Fennel's got a lovely aniseed-like flavour similar to celery, so it's going to be a perfect substitute. Here's a quick chefy tip for garlic. A few minutes before you want to peel it, just put it in some water, and it's going to make the peel super easy to come off. It's literally just going to come off in your hands. You could do this to a whole bulb of garlic at the beginning of the week, and then you've got it ready to use when you need it. We're going to finely slice the garlic instead of mincing it so it has a nice mellow flavour in the soup. So this is a preserved lemon, and as you can see it's quite a bit smaller than a regular lemon, and that's because they pickle a smaller variety of lemon. For example, this one is called a Beldi lemon. They've got a lovely sweet, tangy and salty flavour, and we're only going to be using one as it is quite a strong flavour. So you can buy a jar and they'll last in the fridge for like a few months, which is great. You don't have to worry about using them up really quickly. They're packed in salt and then they're brined in their own juices plus additional lemon juice, and then you get these absolute flavour bombs which are great in stews, soups and even salads. So definitely give these a go and let me show you how to prepare them. I'm just picking out the biggest one I can find, and then I'm going to cut it into quarters, and using the tip of the knife I'm going to try and remove any seeds. Typically people remove all the insides of the lemon and just use the skin, but personally I think that's a bit of a waste, and I like to just remove the seeds and then finely chop it. Because it's been brined for so long, it won't taste bitter and all that pith is going to be lovely and sweet. Here's how it's typically prepared. You just sort of run your knife under the skin, but you really don't need to do that, you can just remove the seeds. I've then got some fresh rosemary from the garden, which is going to go perfectly with the lemon. You could also use fresh thyme, that would work really well as well. We'll then add a good couple of tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. This isn't just for frying the vegetables, but also it's going to add a lovely fruity, peppery flavour, so try to get a good quality one if you can. Next up, we've got a tablespoon of cumin seeds and coriander seeds. It looks like a little paprika might have snuck in, but we'll just let it sizzle away for a couple minutes until the spices release their beautiful aromas into the oil. Then we're going to add some fresh rosemary and that sliced garlic. Winter is a great time to make use of pickled or jarred items, such as these whole cherry peppers. They're sweet, tangy and hot, and they're going to add a lovely boost of flavour to this dish. Over the colder months, I love using jarred or pickled summer vegetables to add a bit of vibrancy to the winter dishes. For example, jarred roast peppers or sun-dried tomatoes, pickled cucumbers, that sort of thing. Just adds a nice bit of freshness to the colder months. We're just going to finely slice these and add these in with the preserved lemon. So right now we're just creating the most amazingly flavoured oil ready to cook those vegetables. We've got the garlic, we've got the rosemary, the seeds and the preserved items, and it's just going to smell incredible at this point. Let everything fry for a few minutes until the garlic is starting to go slightly brown on the edges, and then we're going to add in our sofrito mix, which is the onion, the carrot, and in this case the fennel, but it is usually celery. Season this generously with salt and pepper, and we're just going to cook it down for around 10 to 12 minutes until the vegetables are starting to go fairly soft and they're nice and caramelized and sweet. You want to make sure the vegetables are fairly well cooked, as we're not cooking this soup for ages, and we'll be adding the macaroni pasta, which only cooks for around 12 minutes. The carrots have turned everything a lovely purpley pinky colour, and we're going to add in 1 can of chickpeas with their liquid. This is a nice way of making the soup nice and hearty and creamy without actually adding any cream. So we're just going to crush the chickpeas with a potato masher until you've got a sort of kind of puree, and this is going to help thicken the soup, but also add some good protein, fibre and nutrients. As well as the soup today, we'll also be making this delicious herby sort of relish called Chermoula, and we'll make that towards the end of the video. So add in a good amount of vegetable stock, followed by 2 cans of chopped tomatoes. Make sure to wash it out so you get all the goodness out. Then we've got a can of butter beans or cannellini beans. Next up, we're going to add some nutritional yeast for that sort of nutty, savoury flavour and a bit of extra nutrients. Then I've got some harissa for that smoky, spicy flavour. I'd usually add this while frying the veggies, but I totally forgot. Once the soup is simmering, we're going to add in some macaroni and just give it a good old stir. Bring the soup to a slow simmer, and we're going to pop a lid on and cook it for around 12 to 15 minutes until the macaroni is mostly cooked. I do find it helps to stir the pot every now and again just to make sure the macaroni is cooking evenly and not getting stuck to the bottom. We're also going to add in some sliced green olives. This is optional, but I think it's a nice little touch. If you're not planning on eating the soup now and you're going to reheat it later, then I'd suggest undercooking the pasta slightly so that when you go to reheat it, you can add a splash more water and finish off the cooking process. Otherwise, you're going to get really mushy pasta when you go to reheat it. So that is the soup complete. Be sure to season it with some salt and pepper if it needs it. You can always swap out the pasta for different kinds if you want to. Spaghetti snapped up works quite well, a bit like in a minestrone. And you can also swap out the beans for other kinds if you want to. We'll now start this fresh and vibrant Chermoula sauce, which is going to go great on this warming soup, starting by finely dicing a roast pepper and half a preserved lemon. This is a really quick sauce that we're going to be doing mostly in the food processor, but you can do it with a knife if you don't have one. Start by adding some fresh parsley and an equal amount of fresh coriander. Then I'm adding some fresh thyme from the garden, a small clove of garlic. Then I've got some ground coriander and some ground cumin. I'm also going to add a little bit of sweet paprika, followed by a good amount of extra virgin olive oil. You could use other oils, but olive oil will give you the best flavour. We're then going to add the zest and juice of 1 lemon to give it a really nice fresh kick. If you didn't want to use any oil, you could use the aquafaba from a tin of chickpeas or butter beans. That would also work quite well. Make sure to squeeze the lemon through your hands or through a sieve, and then we're going to whiz it up until we've got a nice sort of chunky salsa-y sauce. You might need to scrape it down every now and again, and you might also need to add a little splash of water if it's not blending up quite enough, and then we're going to season it with some salt and pepper to taste. You don't need to blend it until it's completely smooth. A little bit of texture is always nice. Pour it into a bowl. We'll then add in the chopped roast pepper and the preserved lemon that we prepared earlier. So that is your Chermoula ready to go onto the soup. It's fresh, it's vibrant, it's got a slight kick from the garlic and the spices, and we're also going to toast some pumpkin seeds for a bit of crunch to go onto the soup. So spoon it into a bowl, top it with that Chermoula, and maybe some toasted pumpkin seeds if you want to, or some croutons would be nice and well, and enjoy your bowl of goodness. Okay, time to dig into this delicious warming soup. Oh, it's so good. I've just toasted some of this really delicious Kalamata olive bread, and I've drizzled it with olive oil, a little bit of salt, and that is going to go perfectly with this soup. That hits the spot. You can really taste this is going to do you some good with all the vegetables, the spices, the herbs. It's just a big bowl of goodness, really. Big bowl of earthy goodness. So many different flavours and textures, and it's warm and comforting from the beans and the pasta, and then you get a really nice freshness from the Chermoula. You also get little bursts of lemoniness from the coriander seeds and the preserved lemon, of course. This is a delicious soup to have in winter when you want a nice warming bowl but also in summer as it's got the freshness from the Chermoula, so it's a really good all-rounder soup. It also feels like you're getting a proper meal as you've got the pasta and the beans, so you've got a bit of protein and carbohydrates there, and it's going to really fill you up and set you up for the day. If you're looking for more plant-based goodness, then check out this video and I'll see you soon.